What we have here is a failure to communicate. Remember that classic line from the movie Cool Hand Luke? That's where the warden and Luke were having a hard time communicating. I don't think they really were having a hard time communicating. I think the warden understood exactly what Luke wanted and what he was communicating. I want out of this place. And Luke understood exactly what the warden wanted when he was communicating. You're going to stay in this place till your sentence is up. We often say what we have here is a failure to communicate. I love that phrase. Usually it's not a failure to communicate. Usually it is actually a disagreement and we just like to blame it on a failure to communicate. Sometimes, however, it really is a failure to communicate. I spend a lot of time with people in organizations that complain about communication. These organizations that I get to spend time in are, like your organization, complex. You'd expect communication in those kind of organizations to be a challenge. Maybe they're 24/7 operations with shifts. Maybe they have multiple locations, or they have a really high velocity of work and a high velocity of change. Or maybe they have a reliance on digital and virtual structures to communicate because they don't see each other very often. They're spread out, or they're on back shifts, or they just need to use digital means in which to communicate. So the structure can make communication a challenge. Of course it's a challenge. In those kind of settings, of course it's a big challenge. But one of the reasons that communication in your organization is harder than it needs to be is that people use the org chart as a roadmap for their communication. Here's what I mean by that. The CEO communicates to the VP or the COO, who communicates to the manager, who communicates to the supervisor, who communicates to the front line. Or the deputy director communicates to the director, or the other way around. And they just follow the lines. The deputy director communicates with the division head, the manager, the supervisor, the front line, yada, yada, yada. You see how that all goes? Here's the deal. Org charts, hierarchy as described in an org chart, are not designed to describe how we're supposed to communicate. Hierarchy, especially as we represent it in an org chart, has only one purpose. That is to clarify decision rights. This decision is made by whom? Who makes this decision? Who makes that decision? Hierarchy is not for communication. Hierarchy has a top and a bottom, like your org chart might look, or better yet, the way I like to think of them, there's a front and a back, where you take an organization with the top and tip it over, so there's a front and a back. Hierarchy, whether you think about it as top to bottom or front to back, hierarchy is about decision rights. The broader the scope of the decision, both in time and in impact, the further up or back the people are in that hierarchy who make that decision. Hierarchy, org charts, describe one thing: decision rights. They do not describe communication flow. Communication, rather, happens instead of in a flat organization, it happens in a sphere. Decision-making happens within the hierarchy, but communication happens within the sphere. Never use hierarchy to describe or prescribe how to communicate and with whom to communicate. To decide and then to communicate through hierarchy and expect that that communication flow will work back and forth or up and down through hierarchy will paralyze your organization. Leaders who decide and then communicate their decision through layers of people are asking for trouble. Just like a frontline person who relies on layers and layers of people up or back in the organization to communicate their perspective or their feedback or impact of a design that has been implemented, are also asking for trouble. Communicate directly. Decision authority, decision rights, those hang on a structure. Communication happens directly. You want to know something? Go to the source. You want to make sure people really understand? Go to the source. You want to see how your decisions are being implemented and what's the impact of those decisions? Go to the source. You want to truly understand the impact of your decisions over time as they're understood? Go to the source. Go directly to the source. You get the idea. I've said it over and over. Go to the source. Information is a one-way signal. Communication goes back and forth and up and down and around and around and around. Direct communication is always better. Go to the source. Implement this discipline and you're going to be amazed, surprised at how much more effective you and your team are going to be. Communication is hard. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. All right, leadership is challenging, isn't it? Well, here's to you. Keep it up.